tell you fucking what? You tell your fucking handlers, anyone else can get out to Israel, it's going to get fucking tough for Jews in Australia, mate, until you start speaking out against the extremists in Israel and the extremists here. I will not have a subversive Jewish subversion in my country. Do you understand?
All right.
No, you are right. You just feel like, man. I want to speak to you about intelligence. Oh, come on. Come on, brother. Won't the Gentiles be grafted into the vine, Yitshak? How long have you been in Israeli intelligence? Are you just a subcontractor?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brendan Lee O'Connell. This is how long I've been doing this stuff, fighting Jewish racism and supremacism.
This is about SAS Campbell Barracks, Leon Wind, Variant. Timothy, you told me that Variant does your local and national, your local police intercepts, an Israeli intelligence front.
Pop you in the car.
Yeah, I know you are, Tim. You, Tim. I'll tell you.
This is from August 2008. That is 17 years ago, where I confront secret stores. You remember Variant, Conversing vs. P-Tech, and the Fox News 4-part series with Carl Cameron, Zoom copters? Well, there were secret stores all around the world, and they were fronts for Israeli intelligence. And I confront them at a supermarket in a suburb of Perth, Western Australia, in the north called Joondalup. Because of this, I made reports to the police, and countless times I had interviews with police, and you can see me on the record exposing Unit 8200 electronic data intercept, yeshiva military academies. Ladies and gentlemen, this was before it was popular, and you made lots of money. What you did, you got locked up, and they locked me up for 3 years.
One of the ones I especially liked was when I was arrested in 2014. I'd spoken to Minister Joe Francis, who's friends with our former Jesuit Prime Minister, Tony Abbott. I was invited out for beers with him, and Colonel Special Air Service retired James McMahon. And lo and behold, I'm being interviewed by Detective Mike Smirk and Detective Elizabeth Valletta, and we talked about these medieval religious lunatics. And what did we talk about? Yeshiva training academies.
The yeshiva military academies, there's things called yeshiva military academies where ultra-Orthodox Jews go to train. They receive instruction, the nuts, the stuff they read out of the Babylonian Talmud, the Shulchan Aruch. These are books of the Mishnah or oral law. They are lunacy. They make Adolf Hitler and National Socialist ideology look tame. They're told to slaughter the Palestinians as they're animals. They have no soul. Anyone could go on. These are the yeshiva military academies. And these are very dangerous because you have Australians. It's a bit like ISIS. Everyone would be very worried if, as Australian Muslims are going to train with ISIS. Well, we have a very big problem with Australian Jews going to train in the yeshiva military academies where they receive training in special forces training. They get their combat pilots from there. They want the best of the best from there. The most committed ideologues to the Israeli state. Explosives training, firearms training, so on. Electronic data intercept, specialists in hardware, software development, all sorts of stuff. They then go from there, and guess what? They come back to Australia. And then they get into a private military institutions.
I understand all that, and that's very well explained on your blog.
Tried to cover it up, but we'll see about that. The truth day is coming. Please, I have been doing this for a very long time. Thank you to Mike Delaney, at least a sincere, non-homosexual, non-bisexual, non-drug dealing white nationalist. When white nationalists were not my political cup of tea, but God bless Mike Delaney and John Allen Martinson for putting out missing links in 2008 and for motivating me to get out on the street before the white nationalist movement became populated by Morano Jew, closet homosexual, Shabbat drawers like Nick Fuentes and Fox News, loyal Murdoch pieces of garbage like Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and that piece of crap Tucker Carlson became the heroes. This was August 2008. Suspend your disbelief. That's how we used to do it. Catch you later.
Now Fox News has learned some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S., who may have known things they didn't tell us before September 11th. Fox News correspondent Carl Cameron has details in the first of a 4-part series.
Another part of the investigation has resulted in the detention and arrests of dozens of Israelis at American Mall kiosks, where they've been selling toys called Puzzle Car and Zoomcopter. Investigators suspect a front. Shortly after the New York Times and Washington Post reported the Israeli detentions last month, the carts began vanishing. Zoomcopter's webpage says, "We are aware of the situation caused by thousands of mall carts being closed at the last minute. This in no way reflects the quality." Since September 11th, more than 60 Israelis have been arrested or detained, either under the new Patriot anti-terrorism law or for immigration violations. A handful of active Israeli military were among those detained, according to investigators, who say some of the detainees also failed polygraph questions when asked about alleged surveillance activities against and in the United States.
You from Israel?
No, from Germany.
From Germany as well. Well, you've got a nice mix of them.
Yeah, just Germany and Israel.
Oh, okay. So what, it's a German company as well?
No, it's Israel, but we are just working German and students from Israel.
Well, it's good to see Germans and Jews getting along so well. About time, eh? Do you have a supervisor I can speak to?
Yes.
What's his name?
Yitshak.
Yitshak.
Yeah.
Like Yitshak with me. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
So, can I just ask, how did you come to get the job? Did you just apply?
I was in Sydney.
Yeah.
I fly with the company over here, and we had a headquarter. And then the women of this company came and asked them, "We want to have a job." And then we had an interview, and we had to learn a few stuff. And then she said, "Okay, I booked a flight for you from Sydney to Perth."
Just like that?
Yeah.
They booked the flight for you and paid for you over here?
Yes. So I'm staying here for 4 months. I don't have to pay anything for the flight. Otherwise, I have to pay half the flight back.
Does it back there, okay?
Yeah, it's really good.
Wonderful.
He's just sitting over there.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Hello. I've got a funny question for you.
Yeah.
I'm a bit worried that you might be a contractor Israeli tonight.
What are you afraid for?
You might be. There's a lot of Jewish kids going around selling Chabad. There was hundreds reported from the US after month. US media and Fox News reported them as a front for Israeli intelligence.
Part of the investigation focuses on Israelis who say they are art students from the University of Jerusalem and Bezalel Academy. They repeatedly made contact with U.S. government personnel, the report says, by saying they wanted to sell cheap art or handiwork. Documents say they, quote, targeted and penetrated military bases, the DEA, FBI, and dozens of other government facilities, and even secret offices and unlisted private homes of law enforcement and intelligence personnel. The majority of those questioned, quote, stated they served in military intelligence, electronic surveillance intercept, and or explosive ordnance units. Another part of the investigation has resulted in the detention and arrests of dozens of Israelis at American mall kiosks, where they've been selling toys called Puzzle Car and Zoomcopter.
They're selling Zoomcopters and stuff. The malls throughout the US, they're all still packed up and I'm worried.
About that.
But you could be a front for Israeli intelligence.
I don't know. We don't do that.
Well, it's legal. You don't have that in Sandler behind this thing. That was own.
We don't do that. It's violent part.
I'll tell you why I've got an interest. See, Endox was involved in installing surveillance type stuff and Variant does its job in Sydney. And they installed...
Yes, with regard Amdocs, Variant and Converse, Variant is a subsidiary of Converse. All over the US, Israeli intelligence assets were staking out US government agencies. This was reported in the prestigious Salon, which is a highly respected internet journal. And according to the report's author, whose identity has never been published, the DEA officials identified an increase in the number of incidents in which young Israelis claiming to be art students tried to sell them works of art. It is entirely possible, said the report, that this is an organised intelligence gathering activity. The report also documents how those arrested in the US were connected to Israeli companies that had provided telephony services for American companies and US federal authorities, while also claiming the Israeli companies should be investigated in case they had installed backdoor services, which would allow some future operative to access the American company's systems. The DEA, it is claimed, purchased communications equipment worth some $100 million from Israeli companies 5 years ago, and that it is said to be the reason for the widespread Israeli activity. And that was also reported in Haaretz, which is the daily newspaper in Israel, which of course has a slant saying it's probably a bit of a beat-up, but I think you'll find that it's not a beat-up. And spies or students, and you'll find that large article still available there in Haaretz. You also have the DEA, apparently what was happening, they were targeting a lot of Jewish and Israeli drug dealer targets, and they were amazingly just seemed to be being tipped off until they finally worked out that some sort of backdoor services were installed in this Israeli-produced communications equipment. Now, the espionage operation reportedly includes employees of 2 companies that perform official wiretaps for US, local, state and federal law enforcement. Converse, Infosys and Amdocs. Official spokesman for both companies denied any involvement. Now, when you go to Variant in particular, Variant is a large company, and they specialise also in security stuff like wireless IP security cameras. They actually did all the London Underground. See, London Underground goes with Variant. They were, in fact, controlling all the cameras when the second round of bombings happened on the Tube, and the perpetrators actually got away. Can you believe they got away and got all the way to Spain? Amazing. And they said on various times that the cameras weren't working. It was ridiculous. Now you'll notice here security intelligence, communications interception and analytics solutions, gather intelligence from communications networks to deter and investigate terrorism and crime. These are all Israeli companies, IP video solutions, and this is a company that is also based in Sydney. And we have to wonder about allowing companies like this in, and I wonder also about someone like Mr. Leon Wend. Now, this is Mr. Leon Wend right here. Now, he was also employed to install and write code for the Australian SAS communications systems via ADI, which is Australian Defence Industries. I know this through a contact, or I've met Leon Wen several times. He's an Israeli Jew. According to him, a pilot. His family are ultra-Orthodox fanatic Jews over in Israel. Now, it was alleged at Christmas time in 2007, 2008, I heard that Mr. Leon Wen was installing security systems in the Sydney Rail Transit System. Now, I didn't hear the name Variant mentioned, but I would presume that it would be Variant. And as we know, these are the same companies which are highly likely to have been involved in running the terrorist attacks and to blame on Muslims in the Tube bombing. And I certainly wasn't going to remain quiet about Mr. Leon Wend. Now, Mr. Leon Wend also, remember, if companies like Converse and Variant can put backdoor eavesdropping channels in American Drug Enforcement Agency wiretap equipment, what are the chances that Mr. Leon Wend, who installed and wrote code for the Australian Special Forces communications gear, has installed backdoor eavesdropping channels into our elite Special Forces communications equipment? We need to think about that. I've already informed the Australian Federal Police and others about this. Now, Mr. Leon Wend also installed and wrote code for the weapons and sensor systems on the Australian Collins-class sub. I have seen video footage of Mr. Leon Wend. I've seen hundreds of photos, video footage of him clambering all over the interior. I saw that a full year to 18 months before any footage was available to the public. He was photographing everything. Now, the story is that the Collins-class blowout costs were directly attributable to the Americans refusing to allow Australians to service the sensitive internals of the American-designed and made weapons and sensor systems. This was unacceptable to the Australian government. The Israelis offered their modified US system, which was accepted. It was probably a scam. Probably someone in the Pentagon got paid for theirs, and then a mate over in Israel got their huge cut for the sensor systems. And this is why Leon Wend was in there writing code and, I presume, installing parts of the equipment. Now, that's great. So we have a history of Israeli Jews and Jews in general being involved in wiretapping, spying on supposedly friendly countries. They're huge companies like Converse, Amdocs, Variant are all involved in running intercepts and communications gear. We have Leon Wend doing that sort of work for the our specialist Australian Special Forces, the Special Air Service based in Perth, Western Australia. We have him installing and writing code for these systems on our state-of-the-art Collins-class sub. And we also coincidentally have him installing the security systems for the Sydney Rail Transit System. Think about it. What a coincidence.
Another part of the investigation has resulted in the detention and arrests of dozens of Israelis at American Mall kiosks, where they've been selling toys called...
Personally, this is a chap called Leon Wend, who's Israeli, Jew. His family are ultra-Orthodox Jews from Israel. He installed the security communications equipment for the Australian Special Air Service based down here in Canberra Barracks. He also installed the weapons and sensor systems in the Collins-class sub, our latest submarine, which is Israeli modified according to him. He also has done or was installing the security system for the Sydney Rail Transit system. I presume through there. It was an Israeli Mossad operation. The explosives were placed underneath the train. Okay, nothing personal against you guys. I have a lot of sympathy for the ordinary Israeli Jew who was to suffer over there. But my main fear is that whether you're, saying in the Jewish household, every Jew is expected to look after another Jew first, and Israel is everything.
It is necessary to understand how the Jewish crime network continues to function undetected by the average person. Their operatives and Sionim informants and assistants must play all sides and every side to retain the illusion that they aren't working on the same side. They play friend and associate, entertainer, business partner, villain, and hero.
What I'm concerned about is you may just be a backpacker traveller, perfectly normal. But what I'm concerned about is the company uses this in places within it, either members subcontracted to or directly employed by agencies such as Israeli intelligence and so on. And that's what I'm concerned about.
The Jewish Weekly called The Forward reported that the FBI finally concluded that at least 2 of the detained Israelis were agents working for the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, and that Urban Moving Systems, the ostensible employer of the 5 Israelis, was a front operation. This was confirmed by 2 former CIA officers, and they noted that movers' vans are a common intelligence cover. The Israelis were held in custody for 71 days before being quietly released. Quote, "There was no question but that the order to close down the investigation came from the White House. It was immediately assumed at CIA headquarters that this basically was going to be a cover-up so that the Israelis would not be implicated in any way in 9/11, unquote. Several of the detainees discussed their experience in America on an Israeli talk show after their return home.
And at that point we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
Look, I'm going to leave that stuff with you. It's all interesting stuff. I believe Israel was involved directly with 9/11. I don't believe
You believe that they weren't involved?
absolutely involved. Did you know that all the World Trade Center security, the airport security was Israeli run?
I didn't know that it was.
5 dancing Israelis, the powers were coming in.
If you believe that.
Well, that was reported in the mainstream press. Fox News reported it.
I don't believe it, but if you believe that.
As the world watched in disbelief and asked, how could this be possible, 5 Israelis, later discovered to be Mossad operatives, were seen dancing with joy. Fox News duplicated a report given by the New York Times. Little space was given to this information, but they did in fact state that, quote, a group of 5 men had set up video cameras aimed at the Twin Towers prior to the attack on Tuesday, and were seen congratulating one another afterwards, unquote. Police received several calls from angry New Jersey residents claiming Middle Eastern men, quote-unquote, with a white van were videotaping the disaster with shouts of joy and mockery. They were seen by New Jersey residents on September 11th making fun of the World Trade Center ruins and going to extreme lengths to photograph themselves in front of the wreckage. Witnesses saw them jumping for joy in Liberty State Park after the initial impact. Later on, other witnesses saw them celebrating on a roof in Weehawken.
I grabbed my binoculars and I could see the towers from my windows. And this is where I'm looking. And all of a sudden, down there, I see this van parked. And I see 3 guys on top of the van. And I could see that they were like happy. They didn't look shocked to me. They didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
We had received an all-points bulletin, and I just happened to see the van and, hollered over to my lieutenant, I think that could be the van. We checked it out, and it was. We were all on edge, obviously, so I really wasn't looking to make friends with these people, and neither were the officers that I were with. Once we started talking to them, they were pretty much like, hey, we're not against you, we're with you.
And still other witnesses later saw them celebrating with high fives in a Jersey City parking lot.
Well, the history of, particularly Jewish subversion in the last 10 or 15 years.
It's about killing of thousands of people. Do you think that people are involved in that?
Absolutely, they have a lot to lose. They're surrounded by Arabs and they need America to get over there and clean up the Arabs. Right in Israel, come on, buddy, you hear it. People will tell you that. All the way from the east bank of the Nile to the west bank of the Euphrates.
Don't say that Israel is involved in killing of thousands of people.
Israel will do anything for Israel. And Jews generally will stick together above all else. Come on.
Not for killing thousands of people.
You may. You're probably a nice guy.
No.
Come on. Look at Hitler. Hitler killed his own people. He didn't care.
It's true. Don't compare Israel to Israel.
Well, look at the racist.
Well,
he put you in his image camps, your relatives and so on.
You talk about Israel, how do you like Israel, but now you blame Israel and family.
Well, absolutely.
They never did.
They were heavily involved. Did you know the companies were all direct to Cherkov? What's Cherkov?
No.
Well, that's Zakon. $3 trillion he lost from the Pentagon. He was a rabbi. Around Emmanuel backing up Aban, who's a nutcase Orthodox Jew.
I think that you need to try to prove me a point that I'm not believing in.
Well, why is it everywhere I look? Everywhere I look, I find Jews. You're less than 1/3 of 1% of the world's population. Look at Sidney Rittenberg, with Mao, Samuel Coe, Solomon Adler, Frank Coe, building up China. What were they doing then? Why is it everywhere there's a revolution there's a Jew? Leon Trotsky, Leon Bronstein, a Jew from New York. Why? What is this habit that the Jewish people have? What is this habit? Everywhere I go, in every country. Ask a Hungarian about the revolution, 1919, 1952. Ask the Russian people. Till Stalin did finish. Look at Rothschild, Warburg, shit. Look at Samuel Cohen. Best mates now with Gordon, what's his name, the Prime Minister of England now. Who was Tony Blair's handler? Lord Levi. Where did he go? Remember Kabbalah? John Dee infiltrated the court of Queen Elizabeth I. A Kabbalist, taught by a rabbi out of Vienna. Know my stuff, my friend. Nothing against you personally. You want to be a nice guy.
I'll tell you something.
I want to help the Jewish people.
It's really pissed me off that someone blaming me, myself.
I'm not blaming me. The girl I have.
Myself because I
can't get it, He's protected by
I gave 3 years. 3 years for this country in the army and yet I blame myself.
3 years in the army?
3 years in the army. Yeah, everybody.
But why is it you can serve in the army here and be an Australian citizen? Why is it you can then go to Israel and fight in Israel, whereas they were putting Serbs in jail for going over to Serbia and fighting for Serbia? How come you can do that?
I gave 3 years to give Israel, to protect Israel. Israel protects itself. You blame Israel.
No, they don't. They get $3 billion a year from the United States taxpayers. Israel can't defend itself. It can't survive. It has to live off the American taxpayer dollars. F-16s and F-15s didn't. I don't want to see ordinary Jews killed or harmed or blown up by Hamas. I don't want to see 12-year-old Arab kids shot in the head by a
It's true. No one wants to see that. Oh. No one wants to see that. But you blame someone in killing of thousands of people in this case.
But I got Leon's house searched by the Australian Federal Police. And I'm very worried that Variant is going to blow something up. Variant and Converse are running a security operation in the tube line. The explosives were placed underneath the train. There were no backpacks. They were never seen on the train. Those are witness statements. It's Israeli Mossad. It's an operation run by a government intelligence.
I don't know why you like this. Doing it. Because we don't care. We want to live in peace.
Well,
we want to live in peace. We are here in Australia because we want to live in peace.
Well, I agree. A lot of, a lot of Israel, most of these secular Jews, certainly not religious Jews, the secular Jews are doing great work at much risk to themselves, trying to help the Palestinians, pointing out the extremism of Orthodox and Orthodox Jews in Israel, at great risk to themselves, the Messianic Jews, Jews for Jesus, who are getting quite down.
So there are some groups. One of the most significant of them is an organization called Zochrot, which means remembering in Hebrew. And they go around there are nearly 500 Palestinian villages that were destroyed after 1948 by the army. And they go to many of these communities and post signs telling you about these places, just road signs, just to tell you the names of the main street, for instance. Now, a lot of these communities are on land that's now owned by Jewish communities like the kibbutz. And they're very brave, these activists. I mean, they often find that they're greeted with a great deal of hostility. The local members of the kibbutz will come out, will try and evict them. They will call the police. The police regularly turn out. Only 2 weeks ago, they had a demonstration in what is now called a mixed city, called Ramleh, which was originally a Palestinian city before 1948. There are ghetto neighborhoods, Palestinian ghetto neighborhoods attached to Ramleh, which is really a Jewish city with these ghetto neighborhoods. And they went to these areas to post signs telling you what these streets were called before 1948. They now all have Zionist names, but before that they had their original Arabic names, and the police turned up and evicted everybody, and they arrested several members of Zochrot. So I mean, there's a great deal of hostility at all levels, but from the police force, from ordinary Israeli Jews, against these kinds of activities. But I think they're important, and they are starting to change, even if it's among a small community inside Israel. They are starting to change the understanding of what went on. I've noticed, I've been going to some of these meetings that Zochrot has had in these destroyed villages for the last couple of years, and I've noticed that the size of the number of people turning out for them is growing all the time. And also a much broader community of people. It's ordinary Israelis turning out, not just a small group of radical activists and left-wingers. So that's a hopeful sign, but unfortunately it's still a very small community of people. So a lot of work needs to be done. It's difficult to know who can do that work in a way that isn't going to lead to confrontation, because there is so much resistance to the idea of acknowledging what happened here in 1948, confronting it and dealing with it.
Do you believe it? What about Sidney Rittenberg? I mean, he's a traitor to America. He went and built up Communist China. He worked for military intelligence. American military intelligence. What's he doing over there? He's hanging with Henry Kissinger now. They hang out with Sir Martin Stoll, the largest advertising firm in the world, another Jew. Music industry, advertising, marketing, banking and finance. Just Jews, revolutions, Jews. I know Jewish culture and tradition, which is the Jews shall rule from Jerusalem. The entire world. I mean, you know the difference between the Tanakh, the Old Testament, and the Babylonian Talmud, the Zohar, the Bible, which are racist, homicidal texts. They are every bit as odious as Nazi propaganda. It's disgusting. There's a big difference between that and the Tanakh, the Old Testament, which calls for righteousness, justice and mercy between Jews and also to non-Jews. In Samuel, book of Samuel, the great prophet, he says, even the Gentiles will be grafted into the vine. I believe those things. See, I'm not ringing, but I'm just concerned. I need to see the Jewish people standing up more, particularly outside Israel. In Israel, it's hard. It's hard in Israel. You're surrounded by something else. What am I meant to do? I'm worried about my country being a bunker. A lot of Jews from Israel are getting out of New York and coming to this country. You know, who was the advisor to Kevin Rudd? Samuel Eckstein. Everywhere I go, there's a Jew advising, cuddling.
I want to finish this stuff because really, really pisses me off.
I don't blame you, but it pisses me off that...
No, it really pisses me
It
off.
pisses me off that Jewish bankers funded the Soviet, the Russian Revolution. They funded Hitler. Did you know that? Why was the greatest anti-Semite of all time funded by Jewish bankers? Shit. Warburg. How come the Warburg came and lived out their time in Germany? How come 180,000 Jews served in the German army? You know? Brian Griggs wrote a brilliant book.
You're doing the same. Now you're doing the same.
Well, I'm just telling you, these are a lot of things that make sense.
I don't understand.
But you know, you're in my country now. And I will...
It's my country.
No, it's not. Your country is Israel. You will do anything for Israel. You will kill a non-Jew for Israel. You will do it.
It's not true.
Bullshit. You couldn't give a fuck about Israel. You couldn't give a shit about Israel.
I'm asking you not to bother me.
Well, you don't bother me. Go back to Israel. Go back to Israel. Take Leon with you. But I warn you now, my friend, if anything goes bang in this state or in this country, believe me. Believe me. Yitshak. Believe me.
Have a nice day. Blame him.
No, don't tell me to have a nice day in my country.
Yeah.
You have a nice day.
Okay, have a nice day. Please don't follow me, otherwise I'm going to put
Like when you followed me to my house, did you know that? Mm-hmm. The day after I arranged to go to my friend's house, and knock on the door, a foreigner selling cheap artworks, a Jew, no doubt.
Listen, I'm really asking you, don't do it to me.
I tell you fucking what, if you tell your fucking handlers, anyone else when you get out to Israel, it's going to get fucking tough for Jews in Australia, mate, until you start speaking out against the extremists in Israel and the extremists here. I will not have a subversive Jewish subversion in my country. Do you understand?
All right.
No, you are right.
Let me
No, I'll do whatever I fucking want. You just civilize me, man. I want to speak to you rather intelligence. Oh, come on. Come on, brother. Won't the Gentiles be grafted into the vine, Yitshak? How long have you been in Israeli intelligence? Are you just a subcontractor? And that's a little operation. Secret. Secret indeed. Minerals from the Dead Sea.
F. Scott Fitzgerald, quote, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. This philosophy fitted on to my early adult life when I saw the improbable, the implausible, often the impossible, come true."
What is our common bond truly? Freedom. Freedom. Without freedom, you can't be a Christian no matter what denomination you belong to. You can't be a Buddhist. You can't own a donut shop. You can't drive from here to Oregon. You can't be an American because that's what it's all about, and it's the only thing that it's all about, nothing else. Nothing else. It's about freedom. Only freedom.